Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to do something a little different this time around.
Mm-hmm.
We're diving into film criticism.
Okay.
We're taking a look at this 1993 review of Krzysztof Kieslowski's Three Colors, Blue.
Oh?
And get this, it's by Anthony Lane for The New Yorker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Anthony Lane.
Yeah.
He's such a clever writer.
Oh, he's so witty.
Yeah.
I mean, his writing is just so sharp, and I swear his reviews could make a dictionary blush.
Absolutely. And this review, I mean, it's not your typical movie breakdown.
Right.
He actually uses blue to kind of paint this picture of what European cinema was like in the 90s.
Oh, interesting.
It was such an interesting time. Things were changing.
Yeah.
And a film like Blue had the power to really shake things up.
Yeah, and right from that very first line,
Mm-hmm.
he just sets this super dramatic tone. He's like declaring these titans of European cinema, Fellini, Tarkovsky, like they're gone.
Yeah.
It's like he's clearing the stage, for a new era.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, okay,
Yeah.
the masters, they're gone. But don't worry, Kieslowski's here now.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that Kieslowski wasn't this obvious successor.
Right.
He came from this background of making documentaries.
Yeah.
So to see him create something as visually stunning and as emotionally charged as Blue, it was kind of unexpected.
It was groundbreaking.
Really groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so for anyone who needs a quick refresher, Blue is the first film in Kieslowski's Three Colors trilogy.
Right.
Each film is inspired by, those big ideals of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity.
Exactly. And it's that first ideal, liberty
Yeah.
that Kieslowski really digs into in Blue, but in a way that you wouldn't really expect.
Oh, how so?
It's not about like political freedom or revolutions or anything like that.
Okay.
It's about the kind of liberty that comes from experiencing a devastating loss.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the film, it starts with this just gut-wrenching car accident.
Yeah.
Where the main character, Julie, who's played by Juliette Binoche,
Incredible actress.
she loses both her husband, who was a famous composer,
Right.
and their little daughter.
Ah.
And it's just like you're thrown right into her grief.
It's heavy.
It's heavy from the start, yeah?
Yeah, and what's interesting is the review focuses on how the film isn't really about the accident itself.
Right.
It's about Julie's reaction to the aftermath.
Interesting.
Most people would try to pick up the pieces and kind of rebuild their lives after something like that.
Yeah, try to move on.
Exactly. But not Julie.
Mm.
She decides that she wants this completely new life.
Wow.
One that's free from the pain of her past.
She just wants to wipe the slate clean.
It's almost like she's rejecting those typical ways we're told to grieve.
Right. Like, you have to process this. You have to go through these stages.
Yeah, you have to do this and that. But she's like, nope, I'm done.
I'm forging my own path.
Exactly.
She takes some pretty drastic steps to break away from her past, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah.
Like sells her house, she moves to Paris, changes her name, even throws away her husband's unfinished concerto.
Wow, just tries to erase any trace.
Right.
But here's where things get really, really interesting.
Okay.
As hard as she tries, the past keeps finding ways to kind of pull her back in.
Oh, no.
Like her old flame, Olivier. He tracks her down in Paris.
Oh, wow.
Someone made a copy of the concerto she thought she got rid of.
Oh, gosh.
And then she discovers her husband actually had a mistress this whole time,
Oh, my gosh.
who was now pregnant with his child.
Oh, wow.
It's just constant, like she's in this tug of war with her past.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, Lane, is she actually running a race?
Right.
What's the finish line? Is she running towards something, away from something? Or is Blue less about plot and more about something deeper?
That's the really thought-provoking part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, is Julie simply trying to escape her grief?
Right.
Or is she on this, quest for this whole new understanding of herself and her place in the world?
Right now, Lane also describes Blue as both frightening and visually striking. And he talks about this scene where Julie sees a man getting beaten up outside of her window.
Okay.
And you can just feel the tension build. Like, Kieslowski uses sound to just make it even more intense.
Right. And then there are those moments that Lane calls shock blackouts,
Okay.
where the screen suddenly goes dark.
Oh, wow.
And it's accompanied by these jarring orchestral chords.
Really?
It's like, imagine your mind suddenly going blank for a second
Yeah.
when you're hit with a powerful memory or emotion.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's very jarring.
And for those of us who aren't, film critics, what's the significance of that? What's he going for?
Well, it's a really interesting technique because it's something that you might expect in an art house film.
Okay.
The kind of movies that are known for being a little experimental and less focused on a straightforward plot.
Yeah.
But Kieslowski blends that with, more traditional filmmaking techniques.
Right.
And it creates this unique visual language that's both unsettling and captivating.
So it's not just about telling a story, it's about making you feel something.
Exactly. He's messing with time and our perception of reality
Right.
to reflect what's going on inside of Julie's head.
And we can't talk about Blue without talking about Juliette Binoche's performance.
Oh, she's phenomenal.
Lane points out how she's often cast in roles where she's, going through some sort of hardship or violence.
Yeah, she's often put through the ringer.
But in Blue, he says that she's given the space to, as he puts it, come back to life.
I love that.
You can really see her strength and resilience shine through in this role.
Exactly. And the way she does it is so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Some actors, they go big with every emotion.
Yeah.
Binoche is the opposite. Her acting is what you might call thrifty.
Okay.
She uses just tiny expressions, gestures,
Wow.
to convey so much depth and emotion.
It's like she's speaking volumes with just a glance.
Right, and it's almost like she's mirroring Kieslowski's focus on those small, intimate moments.
So instead of telling us what Julie's feeling, she's showing us.
Precisely. It's a perfect match for Kieslowski's style.
Yeah.
Which, as Lane points out, doesn't really like clear-cut conclusions.
Right. He brings up this example of handbags,
Handbags.
which, as odd as it sounds, seem to pop up a lot in Kieslowski's films.
Really?
He specifically mentions a scene in Blue and another one in The Double Life of Veronique,
Okay.
where the main characters just dump out the contents of their bags.
Interesting.
And it seems like such a random detail, but Lane suggests there's something more to it.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this seemingly insignificant detail, those handbags,
Yeah.
actually connects back to Kieslowski's life under a police state.
Oh, wow.
He grew up in a place where the government controlled the narrative.
Right.
So straightforward stories were often kind of suspect.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even in his films, he's still kind of wary of presenting a single clear-cut truth?
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
always this sense of mystery, this layer of ambiguity in his work. It's like he's saying, look closer.
Yeah.
There's more going on here than meets the eye.
He's inviting us to dig deeper.
Exactly. Instead of giving us all the answers he wants us to think,
Right.
to grapple with the complexities and to kind of find our own interpretations.
Yeah. I like that.
It's engaging.
Yeah.
It's thought-provoking.
It keeps us on our toes.
Exactly. It's like those handbags are like a metaphor for his filmmaking,
Oh, okay.
full of these like seemingly random things that when you look closer, they actually reveal something deeper,
Yeah.
you know?
About the characters and the world they live in.
Exactly.
Yeah. It makes you want to rewatch his films with a magnifying glass, just to catch all those little details you might have missed the first time.
Absolutely. And, Lane mentions how some critics back in Poland actually criticized Kieslowski
Oh, really?
for not being like overtly political in his films.
Uh-huh.
But Lane argues that Kieslowski's approach is actually deeply political,
Oh, okay.
just in a different way.
How? So, I mean, if he's not like directly addressing political issues,
Right.
what makes it political?
Well, by focusing on these like individual human experiences
Okay.
within this complex and often absurd world,
Right.
Kieslowski's films become this kind of subtle but powerful critique of any system that tries to impose a single rigid narrative.
So it's more about showing the human impact of these larger systems
Exactly.
rather than like preaching about that.
Right. He's trusting the audience to kind of connect the dots,
Yeah.
to see how those individual stories actually reflect larger societal issues.
More subtle.
It's subtle, but it's incredibly effective.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Mm-hmm.
And it stays with you long after the film is over.
It's funny you mentioned The Double Life of Veronique earlier because there are definitely some parallels between that film and Blue.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, they both kind of explore these themes of identity, connection, and searching for meaning in life.
Absolutely. They both deal with these characters who are trying to figure out who they are and where they fit in
Yeah.
in a world that often feels very chaotic and unpredictable.
And they both leave you with this lingering sense of wonder. Like
Yeah.
there's always more to discover.
Right. And that brings us back to Blue.
Okay.
And this idea of liberty that Lane keeps kind of circling back to. He described Julie's journey as this race.
Right.
But if that's the case, then what's the finish line for her?
Yeah.
Is it just escaping her past?
Right.
Or is it something more profound like finding some kind of internal emotional freedom?
It's a great question because On the surface, it seems like she's trying to run away from her grief.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe she's actually running towards a deeper understanding of herself.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Kieslowski, he doesn't give us an easy answer.
Right.
He doesn't tie everything up neatly with a bow.
He leaves us hanging.
He just presents us with Julie's journey, her struggles, her triumphs, and ultimately her embrace of the unknown.
And Lane ends the review with this really thought-provoking line.
Oh, yeah.
He says, "The bed is a free country."
I love that line.
What do you make of that?
It's so playful, but it also cuts right to the core of what Blue is exploring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe true freedom isn't about our external circumstances,
Okay.
but about finding that internal space where we can be ourselves, where we can make our own choices.
So it's less about breaking free from physical constraints.
Right.
And more about liberating ourselves from the internal barriers that might be holding us back.
Exactly. It's about finding that space within ourselves where we can kind of define our own meaning and live authentically.
That's powerful.
And that's a message that resonates with everyone, no matter what their situation is.
It makes you wonder what Julie's bed represents, metaphorically speaking.
Right.
What's that space of freedom for her?
It's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to revisit both Blue and The Double Life of Veronique, just to see how those themes play out in each film.
Me too. They're the kind of films that reward you for paying attention,
Yeah.
for really digging into those layers of meaning.
Absolutely. And, you know, Lane's review really captured that sense of depth and complexity in Kieslowski's work.
He definitely gave us a lot to think about.
He did.
So folks, there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Our deep dive into Anthony Lane's insightful review of Three Colors, Blue.
It's been a journey.
It has. We've talked about liberty loss and the enduring power of Kieslowski's films.
Powerful films.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought. If the bed is a free country, like Lane says, what does that actually mean for Julie? What kind of freedom is Blue really all about?
Yeah.
Is it purely internal, like something she finds within herself, or is there more to it?
That's the question that really stays with you, isn't it?
It does.
And it makes you think about, you know, what freedom means in our own lives, too.
Right.
Like in a world that's always trying to put us in these boxes, you know?
Yeah. Label us, define us.
It's exactly. How do we find that space where we can truly be ourselves?
It's like Kieslowski is kind of hinting that true freedom isn't about reaching some end goal, but it's this constant back and forth between what we want deep down and, you know, all those outside pressures that are kind of pushing and pulling us.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's not about reaching a destination.
Right.
It's about the journey itself.
I like that.
The journey of facing our past, embracing the present moment,
Yeah.
and just being open to whatever the future might bring.
And maybe the most important thing that we can learn from Blue is that freedom isn't just about breaking free from, you know, the things that are holding us back on the outside,
Right.
but it's also about letting go of those inner barriers that keep us from really living fully and honestly.
That's such a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about finding that space within ourselves where we can create our own meaning,
Yeah.
define our own terms.
On our own terms.
Exactly. And that's something we all crave, you know, no matter what our lives look like.
Couldn't agree more. This whole conversation just makes me want to go back and watch Blue again.
Yeah, me too.
You know, see if I catch anything new this time.
It's the kind of film that unfolds a little differently each time you watch it.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe we'll find ourselves thinking about our own handbags,
Right.
what they reveal about us.
I love that. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Three Colors, Blue.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been eye-opening, to say the least.
Until next time,
Keep exploring.
asking those tough questions.
And keep diving deep.
Absolutely.